Good morning. My name is Cody Gable, and I'm here today to teach you about John Locke and a little bit of his biography, as well as his educational ideas and how they impacted education. So, to start off with his biography, John Locke was born in England. He lived to be 72 before he died. He was born into a Puritan home. His father fought in the English army, actually, specifically fought in the English Civil War during the time of King Charles, which a lot of critics and sources state that is where a lot of John Locke's ideas began to start. That was differing from the government and education at the time. His Puritan home, like I said, was very strict when it came to education, strict on him. And he went to Westminster until he graduated, and then went to Oxford, which is where he received his bachelor's, and then 2 years later he received his master's. He also went into medicine for a little bit of time. Sources didn't really say if he didn't like it or just didn't work out, but he left it and then went to work into government. Um, so, a few of his educational ideas. The first one was the natural rights theory, which is the theory that everyone, no matter your status, everyone had the inherent right to life, liberty, and property. This came from his two treatises of government, which we'll get into later, and as also was used in the Declaration of Independence, which we'll also get into later. John Locke had an empiricist view, which is an epistemology that holds that everyone receives truth and knowledge through experience, specifically the sensory experience. The idea of tabula rasa came from John Locke, which tabula rasa means basically blank slate. It's like a blank piece of paper, and that his belief was that it took sensory experience being impressed upon someone for them to gain that experience. So basically, you're born without any morality. You're born with basically knowing nothing, and that it takes everyone else to teach you and for you to learn and gain the sensory experience for you to basically become a functioning person in society. He also was big into moral reasoning. Through moral reasoning, John Locke believed you could achieve it by adulthood, and that everyone needed moral reasoning to make a well-ordered society. That without moral reasoning, you would have a dysfunctional society. So through his educational ideas, so like we touched on before, so his natural rights theory through the two treatises of government basically went starkly against the education of that day. So the education during his day was oftentimes based upon your status. So if you're born in an aristocracy family, you're basically rich, wealthy, you got the best education that money could buy, for lack of better words. If you were born into a poor family, you didn't get the same education or any education at all. And John Locke believed that everyone should receive equal education underneath the same status. Uh, Through that, it was also used. So, like we spoke about earlier, the life, liberty, and property phrase was used, even though it changed a little bit, in the Declaration of Independence. So, John Locke's ideas influenced Thomas Jefferson, who wrote the Declaration of Independence. But Thomas Jefferson changed the life, liberty, and property to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness in the Declaration of Independence. This phrase, even though it was not the sole reasoning, it was one of the reasons also used in the arguments for women, African Americans, and other citizens who do not have equal rights to get the equal rights and to receive, which through the equal rights allow them to get the same education as everyone else. Everyone's equal, right? So everyone deserves the same education, just like John Locke was believing. Also, through this, John Locke believed that teachers were responsible for teaching four major areas to students. This was virtue, uh, good breeding, wisdom, and was responsible for teaching courses that basically covered morality, government, social society. And the reason for that is he believed that education, basically their job is to prepare you for jobs in those areas, right? We don't want people to be in certain jobs that aren't prepared for it, so it was the teacher's jobs to teach them that. When it came to the good breeding, it was basically just teaching people to be good people, to be able to function in society and to be a product that would be worth having a well-ordered society. And through these things, you would as basic teachers, the responsibility is on you to make the society you want it to be. Lastly, through this, like I said, he had like several views with this. So some of the critiques that came from this, a lot of the people that critiqued, because a lot of John Locke's ideas that he had did focus on men in this time, because that was the way society was. So a lot of the critiques from the society state that he focused too much on men, and that these ideas didn't pour over it for women and other races at the time. Now, I would argue, one, that yes, at the time that's what he did, but these same arguments were used later on for women and other people to receive the same education. Like I said, African Americans and women were able to receive this equal rights, equal education through those rights, which was deserved and needed. And this came through the argument of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness through the Declaration of Independence, which came from John Locke's ideas of life, liberty, and property. My personal critique, I would state, kind of goes against his tabula rasa as far as us being born without a morality. This comes from a biblical worldview for myself, specifically coming from Romans chapter 2, verses 12 through 16. Basically, through these verses, we see that people who are not Jews were able to act as though they already had the law written on their hearts. So lack of better words, they knew what was right and wrong from the beginning because it was written on their hearts. And I agree with that view of the fact that I believe when we're born, we are born with a morality within us. We know what's right and wrong. But, yes, our education and all that furthers our experience to where we can use better self-control and to be better members of society. This concludes my outlook on John Locke and his educational ideas and how he impacted education. I hope you enjoyed it and you have a wonderful day.